Hi there, Infernal here. Have you ever played a video game and spent longer than intended just lingering in an area, soaking in the atmosphere? I'm sure you know what I mean. The spaces in games where there's no particular goal or destination, but where there's a particular emotional feeling attached. Liminal media has gotten popular trying to capture something like this feeling. But in this video, I want to talk specifically about the moments and places in games that let us breathe, that let us bask in comfort, nostalgia, or just pure vibes. Here's the tension at the heart of it. These spaces sit somewhere between comfort and mystery, and I think that's exactly why they stick with us. It's a feeling I've realized I've been chasing in games my whole life. Mysterious little pockets of a world that feel safe and unsettling at the same time. So why do we remember these areas long after we've finished a game? What keeps pulling us back? My initial idea for this video came from a recent playthrough of Neon White. The goal of that game is essentially a series of speedruns, so it's not designed for you to stop and soak in the environment, but I can't help doing it anyway. The endless reflective water and bright skies create this mood of stillness and comfort that is also somehow a little melancholy. I find myself stopping and staring at these structures that seem to defy logic, wondering who built them and why. What purpose do they serve in this world beyond just being obstacles? Again, the internet has a word that is close to this feeling: liminality. And its popularity has led to a wave of games built explicitly around it. Pools, for example, drops you into a liminal playground with an undercurrent of dread, without ever quite becoming a horror game. Then there's Escape the Backrooms, which leads fully into horror, playing with our expectations of familiar spaces. And going back even further, you have LSD Dream Simulator, which was exploring this territory before liminal was even a word we used for it. A strange, dreamlike world that feels adjacent to our own, familiar and alien all at once. In games like Pools, liminality is the whole point. The entire experience is built around that emotional register. But what fascinates me more are the games that stumble into that feeling for just a few moments before moving on. And there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, these brief moments hit harder because you don't expect them. They're the parts of the game that feel almost outside the gameplay itself. So let's take Ocarina of Time, one of my favorite games ever, and definitely one of my favorite Zelda games for sure. Remember falling into those little holes scattered around Hyrule Field? Inside, it feels completely detached from the rest of the world, like you've stumbled onto something that shouldn't be there. There's no gameplay reason to go in, but they become these small pockets of comfort and mystery. Who dug them? Why is there a random cow in here? And why has this tiny, insignificant cave stuck with me for decades? That feeling runs through the whole Zelda franchise, honestly. The shrines in Breath of the Wild hit it almost instantly. That contemplative, mysterious music, the impossibly large non-Euclidean architecture, the skyboxes and ground planes that taper off into infinity. I like to just sit in those and take it in before I even solve the puzzles in the shrines. The moment that actually helped inspire this video more, though, is in Majora's Mask. There's a slight spoiler here, so skip ahead if you haven't finished the game. Okay, so right before the final boss, Link ends up in a sunny, open field with endless sky and a single tree. It feels like stepping into the Windows XP wallpaper. Every time I play, I want to linger there a little longer before facing what's waiting beyond it. Resident Evil does something kind of similar in a very different key. The safe rooms, especially the ones in the RE1 remake, have a soft amber lighting and calming music that create a real sense of respite, even though you know you'll have to eventually go back out there and face things. It's a bit like stepping out of a party to catch your breath in the bathroom, knowing you can't stay out there forever. Or is that just me? The rooms are practical. Everything in them makes sense for the setting, but they also work as these little pockets of contrast. Why is the safest room in the game often the most memorable one? I think I've felt this pull in games my whole life, without ever quite having words for it. Super Metroid, maybe my favorite game ever for atmosphere alone, is full of these moments. One shining example for me is the eating rooms, with nothing but droning synths and quiet beeps, feeling like spaces that have been sitting there for ages, patiently waiting for someone to arrive. It's the same quality I get from the Resident Evil save rooms, a pocket of peace carved out of the noise around it. A couple of games I've talked about in previous videos fit this theme too. In fact, they're the games that actually helped inspire this video. Eco, for example, is soaked in atmosphere, but it's built almost entirely around a feeling of loneliness and isolation. And the moment that fits here is saving your game in one of the couches, where the world literally pauses around you and lets the music take over. Like I said, I've made videos connecting Eco's themes to Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 1 has plenty of those lingering spaces too. If I had to pick one place, it's Ash Lake. Dreamlike, quiet, oozing atmosphere, even with some enemies around. It feels almost sacred. Once again, you stumble into it, and it stops you cold for a while. Games are full of these big moments that are designed to be noticed. They're scripted set pieces built to stick in your memory. But I think the quiet, comforting, occasionally weird spaces are the real unsung heroes here. They're what actually keeps pulling us back, because there's always a little more to notice each time we return. What ties all these examples together that I've listed is stillness. Every one of them is a moment where the game's pace drops out and I stop to just take something in before moving on. And here's what I'm landing on. Games become memorable when they stop asking us to play them for a moment, when we drift a little off the path, stop to smell the proverbial roses, and let ourselves sit with the smaller moments for a while. Maybe next time you're playing, you'll find your own version of these spaces too. Maybe you'll let yourself linger there for a little bit longer. Okay, so if today's video inspired you to revisit games like Resident Evil, Eco, Dark Souls, or any of the other games we've talked about, I've put together links in the description, and there's a QR code on screen now. If you choose to use them, it helps support the channel and no extra cost to you. More than anything though, I hope this video gave you a reason to experience these worlds again. So thanks again for joining me on this one. I really appreciate all the comments and likes. I love digging into the mechanics, art, and structure of games like these, and I hope to keep doing it for a long time. If you want extra content, check out my Patreon, and I stream on Twitch on Wednesdays. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.